I've often talked about how when you have an event that the media continues to hype up and pump up, like we've seen with the Syria event, which now it appears that Obama is willing to allow Vladimir Putin to take the lead on the global scale here. Remember, in the G20, Putin was really the sensible guy. He's the one who's making sense, talking about, hey, the Al-Qaeda rebels you're supporting are tearing out the hearts and livers of the Syrian army captives, and they're eating them on camera. So are these the people you want to support? So he seems to be the sensible one, and I'm not saying that I like Putin or I like Russia. I've never been there. But what I will say is this, that it's becoming clear that this event now is something that is so, you know, I did a video about this maybe last week, I think it was, where I said, look, if there's not a strike on Syria from Obama, it is no question in my mind, based on my research, based on the people that I talk to, that the Chinese and the Russians are using extreme leverage financially over Europe and over the West, okay? This is all about a pipeline that I've been talking now about for weeks. It's all about a pipeline that runs through Syria up into Europe, and, you know, instead Assad was going with the Iranians and with the Russians. And to preserve the petrodollar, the U.S. and the West needs to keep the Saudis, Qatar, these other OPEC nations friendly to the West, keep them all in the loop of controlling these resources and allowing the flow of these resources. But again, I want to talk now about the IMF because, you know, this whole thing is dragging out. Obama was on TV yesterday, 5 interviews. Today he addresses the American people in the primetime speech that he claims he's now changed based upon this idea that Russia will take delivery of Assad's chemical weapons, and that, you know, it's supposed to happen in a relatively quick period of time, and that, you know, everything will be now fine, okay? IMF came out over the weekend, totally unreported. In fact, nobody reported it. It was on CNBC in an interview with Christine Legrand, who is a committed, avowed socialist, basically running the IMF, which, remember, here in America, Americans, why is the IMF important? Why does it even matter? For many reasons. But you support the IMF. Your tax dollars, 40 to 50% of all income, all the money that goes into the IMF and flows out to all these other countries, comes from the United States. In fact, this is in a body that was commissioned after the first Bretton Woods that set the dollar as the world reserve currency. Well, what else has been going on? Well, Christine Legrand is basically saying, listen, Ben Bernanke and the Fed in America, you need to keep printing money, because if you don't keep printing money, emerging markets are going to completely collapse. Now, she must be delusional, because already those markets are getting hit really hard by the rampant inflation. You know, in China alone, inflation's up over 200% in the last 10 years alone. Not to mention India and all these other countries where their currencies are getting hammered. But nonetheless, if the U.S. stops tapering, I've said now for some time, we're not only, you know, producing 85 billion, or should I say the criminal banking cartels that have hijacked our currency in our economy aren't just printing out $85 billion a month. The number is much higher than that, well estimated to be over $125 billion a month, because they're bailing out institutions around the world trying again to prop up the dollar from having a collapse. Now, so Christine Legrand is saying this, right? No one talks about, hey, you know, the IMF head is talking about how the dollar, you know, that you need to keep devaluing the dollar in order, and I'll quote her specifically. She says, on the other hand, advanced economies acknowledge that the tapering of the unconventional monetary policy, though left to central banks, had to be orderly, well communicated, and had to be done in dialogue with other economies of the world. So forget about American sovereignty and America acting in its best interest. No, now a body that America funds almost half of all their reserves is now saying that we need to be part of this collective community and figuring out what's best for all the countries in the world. And this is all about this deindustrialization plan and what the IMF was all set up for, which is take from America, take from the other wealthy nations and their hard work, the fruits of the labor of the American people and their businesses and small businesses that drive this economy, and hand it off to other dictators around the world, other countries who don't have a system set up to have a market that it fluctuates and grows. One more quick point that I want to make. IMF also warned the Chinese just a few months ago of the urgent need for economic change. Now, what was the urgent need here? One of the things they said they had to do was that they had to expand their consumer base in China more, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a perfect sign of the global economic reset that I have talked about now for 2 years plus, which is the dollar losing the world reserve currency. People think that China needs America. China is now planning. It's already been planned. The IMF is talking about it. Look at their own documents about how they need to expand the consumer base. Remember, they don't need to replace every American consumer. But if they replace a third of American consumers, that would be significant. And the average Chinese is a saver, doesn't really use credit, buys their cars with cash. So a little bit of credit would go a long way. I'm Fabian for Liberty, reporting on things that are huge economic updates that are not obviously being reported in the mainstream media, because the mainstream media is keeping everyone's eyes on Syria. But what is this criminal government doing behind the scenes? Remember, you can subscribe to my channel, Fabian for Liberty. See the link up the upper right hand, this little image right up here in the corner. Click that, go to my channel, subscribe. I post videos every single day. Thanks for watching. I'm out.